we are going to have a great talk here. And we're going to talk about climbing the mountain. Right? For most of my followers, that means learning the language. So, learning a language is like climbing a mountain. Right? This is a metaphor, it's a symbol for something you want to achieve. And the same is true for any other thing. If you want to build a business, that's climbing a mountain. If you want to get in shape, that's climbing a mountain. And there's a psychological component to this. And we're going to talk about it. So, if you are ready to learn English, learn a little bit about psychology, have a conversation about this struggle, right? This struggle. And by the way, right now, because of what's going on in the world, the struggle is real. I can see it. I talk to a lot of leaders, a lot of business people, and something's happening, right? Something's happening where people are quitting. People are stepping away. Right. And we're going to talk about this, right? It's going to be a great conversation. So if you're here, welcome. So Zex is here. Welcome, Zex. How are you doing? Comment is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The warriors are here. If you don't know me, I'm David, your favorite teacher. I'm a polyglot. I teach English, Spanish, and French. I teach it, or I teach them. I teach these languages because it's my passion. I love learning and I love teaching. And so I do what I love, right? Very, very simple, right? So I put my heart and soul, I put my passion in, and passion is contagious, right? It's contagious. It's like a fire. When you speak to someone who's passionate, you get that fire. Right? It's one of the greatest things you can tap into is that fire, right? From the very beginning. That's right. That's right. So we're going to tap into that fire and see, how we can keep the fire going. All right. Because the key to success is to keep the fire alive. Keep the fire alive, guys. So Betush, Evelina, and Zex are in the chat on Instagram. So welcome, guys. All right. Now, if you're watching this and you'd like to take your language to the next level, just reach out. Join the exclusive community where you get challenges, content, you get a speaking club, Zoom lessons, direct access to me, a lot of learning tips, study programs. It's the best way. Right, it's the best way to get results. And here is the QR code. If you're watching this on desktop or on your iPad, just scan this with your phone and you'll have access to the WhatsApp community. Or if you're on your phone, just drop a comment or send me a message, a DM, and I will send you the link. All right, so why is everyone quitting? Right, that's a question. What is the answer? So I talk to people all the time, and they're just telling me, "Wow, I have, at work, you know, there's this concept called the silent quitting. Right? At gyms, you have a lot of people. They just stop going. I see it with some language learners, not everyone, of course, but a lot of people are very motivated in the beginning. They start. They're like, yes, I'm going to learn English. I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to learn French. And they start, right? Which is the hardest part. To start is the hardest part. So they start, and they're excited at first, right? And then there comes a time where they quit. And it's a very common thing. It's I see with businesses. I talk to a lot of people, a lot of my friends are business owners, or they started a small online business, or a YouTube channel, or something, and then they quit, right? And you see it with divorces, right? That's a form of quitting. In the Western world, divorces are more than 50, are above 50%. So people quit, right? It's instead of and what I'd like to discuss today are the psychological elements, of course, to this phenomenon, right? What's happening in the world, and most importantly, how to beat it. Because, as Common says, to keep fighting, that's the hardest part. The hardest part is to keep going, right? To not give up, to not quit. That's the hardest part. If you can just do that, then your success is almost guaranteed. Whatever you do, whatever you do, right? Like, let's say, for example, today I went to the gym and I had zero motivation, zero energy. It was just, and the last, week or so, it's been the same, right? It's just this kind of very heavy energy in the world. I know you've felt it as well. A lot of people have felt it. Just this like heaviness to it. But I still go to the gym. I still teach my classes. I still do my consulting. I still have my community. I still tutor people. I help people no matter what. I still went to the gym. Did I have a great workout? No, I didn't. Right? But I still went and it still counts. Right? I still showed up. And that's the only thing that matters is showing up. Right? So let me see. So first of all, maybe let's talk a little bit about failure. So the verb is to fail, but failure is the noun. So the first fallacy is that failure is the end. That's the fallacy. What's a fallacy? It's something that's not true, something that's false, right? That's a fallacy. And it is a belief that is mistaken, right? Mostly, based on unsound arguments, right? It's faulty reasoning. And so the reasoning here is that failure is the end. If you fail, that's it. But it's not, right? That's the logic there is faulty. The reality is that failure isn't the end. It's the proof you're pushing or pulling your limits. Which one is it? Choose here if you are in the chat. You can guess what this is or choose the correct one. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I do it. I go live. Sometimes I go live and there's no one here. I'm basically just talking to myself. Right? It happens. Right. Especially in the summer, people are at the beach, people are, I say, okay, I'm going to go live. And whoever wants to listen to me, great. But it happens that my lessons, my lives, fall flat. But you see, I don't do it. I mean, I do it for you guys. I do it for the students, but I also do it for myself, right? Because that's what I do. It's an honor code. I will do it if there's a million people or if there are 0 people, right? Because it's the code. It's how I think. And and some people see value in it. I mean, most people see value in it, but it's if I can reach one person, if I can share what I know, then that's already a victory, right? The victory is in doing it. The victory is in taking that step, right? So failure, it's not the end. It's proof you're pushing your limits, right? So failure is actually it shows, it's proof that you're going forward, you're moving forward, you are pushing yourself. And so let's talk about failure, another fallacy. People think failure is a big crash. It's just like failure. Everything collapses. It's just a big crash that happens at once. That's not the case. Failure is a slippery hill, slippery downhill, or slippery slope. A, B, or C. Choose A, B, or C. All right. So what is it? Is it a hill, a downhill, or a slope? Right? And it's slippery. Meaning you slowly, like let's say if there's soap or oil on the ground, it's slippery. Right? And this metaphor of the slippery slope, right, is it's something that leads. It's small little steps, right, that take you, to closer to a disaster. But the disaster is you're not there automatically. It slowly wears you down, right? It slowly wears you down. Well, no, slopes don't need to be slippery. You can have rocky slopes. Slopes is just the angle. It's just the angle, right? So a slope just means it's not 90 degrees, right? It's not, and it's not flat. It's just the angle. So you can have slippery slopes, right, where you slide down, but they don't necessarily need to be slippery all the time. They often are. That's absolutely true, but they don't always have to be, right? And so yeah. So well, for first the slopes, but remember, the ski slopes are a type of slopes. Not slopes are not only used in the skiing context. Right? That's one context where we say, oh, the slopes, might go down the slopes. But there is a general context for this word as well. And so it's right, it's a slippery slope. Right? failure starts with small things, right? You start skipping class. You start getting a little lazier, right? You start disregarding your health. You start, sleeping in a little bit longer, right? You start eating, junk food, right? And then slowly, you you descend into, right? So it's a slope because you're falling, right? So failure is not one thing that just happens one day, oh, in 1 second. It is a gradual process, right? Right, and it's a lot, and most of the time, before we get into the mistake aspect of it, right? Most of the time, when you see it, remember, it's, failure doesn't exist, but the perception of failure, it's just you start losing small battles, right? And a lot of them are psychological, right? A lot of them just say, oh, I'm never going to learn English, I'm never going to learn Spanish, I'm never going to learn French, right? And that's just psychologically, you just lost the battle. And then you don't study as you normally do. You skip a day, right? And then you're like, I'm going to skip class today. Right? Or you have a streak. Let's say you have a streak on Mondly, the Mondly app, the best language learning app. And let's say you have a streak, 100 days. And then you're like, today I'm just going to skip it. Right? That's, and then that's the slippery slope. Right? That's the one thing that leads to another thing, that leads to another thing, and then before you know it, you've lost your gains. Right? So let's say there are mistakes along the way, right? You make a mistake, you you don't do something, or you miscalculate, or maybe when you're speaking, you make a mistake. Right? Every mistake is a step forward in disguise or on disguise. Right? Meaning the mistake, when you make that mistake, it's actually a victory, a hidden victory, because you're moving forward, right? You learn something, right? And in your psychology, being able to make mistakes, being able to lose and still fight, that's that's the greatest victory there is. Look at Muhammad Ali. He was one of his greatest. He was able to take so many hits without falling. That was one of his superpowers, was he could get hit and hit and hit, and he was able to to take the pain. And that is the superpower. Being able to take the pain is one of the keys to success. All right. So hi, Maria. Hi, you rock. Hi, Flavia, Alejandro, Azem. Welcome to all our friends here. Welcome to class. We're talking about climbing the mountain, the figurative mountain. In this case, we're focusing on language learning, but it can be any mountain. So let's go to this analogy, climbing the mountain. So quitting early is like leaving the mountain halfway. The hardest part is wasted. So let's break this one down. So imagine you're climbing a mountain. Right. Now, the early part, so of course the hardest thing is a psychological aspect. Because most people, they look up at the mountain and they say, "Oh, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do it." They walk away. I prefer to stay here. I'm never going to that climbing that mountain is impossible. So that already keeps that's 80% of people never even start. So they never even climb the mountain. Now 20% of people, they they're up for the challenge in the beginning. They start, right? They start climbing the mountain, right? And they take on the challenge, but whether it's a third of the way through, or a third of the way up, or halfway up, or three-quarters of the way up, they they give up. They quit, right? And what happens when you climb a mountain and then you quit, many times you, like a slope, you start regressing, you start, going backwards. And what's dangerous about this is that if you imagine you go up halfway and then you lose your, you go back, back to the foot of the mountain, you're probably not going to go back up, right? Because psychologically, it's very hard to be like, oh, I'm not going to do that all over again. And you're at 0, then you go to 50, and then you go back to 0. You're not going to go from 0 to 50 again. Most people are not going to go through it again, right? So they'll just be like, oh, no, it's too late. I already lost. I'm going to walk away. Right? Doing it, starting from 0 is it's just too much work. I'm not going to go through it again. And this is why most people, from 20, most people who, 20% who actually take on the challenge of going up the mountain, I'd say 80% of that 20%, right? I'll give up, and then continuing going all the way to the peak of the mountain is only less than 5%, right? It's less. Did you know that less than 5% of language learners achieve full fluency? Less than 5%, right? Now, that success rate is so low. People saying, well, you know, now there's two kinds of people. People say, oh, only less than 5% of students, achieve full fluency. Well, I'm just not even going to try because the odds are stacked against me. But I'm not interested in that mentality. I'm interested in the 4% or 3% or 2%. It's not exactly, but it's a small percentage. It's less than 5% of people who say, I can be part of that 1%, that 2%, that 3% of students who actually achieve fluency, right? I mean, this is the data doesn't lie, and I've seen it. I've seen it. I've studied it. I've studied, you know, hundreds of thousands of data points, maybe more, data points that show this. Most people never achieve fluency in a foreign language, right? And I'm explaining why that is, because most people don't even climb the mountain, and the ones who do start climbing quit halfway. So language fluency is very rare because it demands persistence or because it requests persistence. Right. Which verb is the one that fits? Right? It's very rare. Right? Very, very rare. This is why when you meet people who actually mm, have achieved mastery in a foreign language, it's very impressive. It's one of the most impressive things. Right. So here it demands persistence, not perfection. Right? It's not talent. Talent doesn't get you there. It's not intelligence. Right? It's not some supernatural quality. It's just the ones who can take the pain, right? The ones who can fight, right? It's their own mind, right? Your own mind, your own inclinations, your own tendency to quit. That's your biggest enemy, right? That's your biggest enemy, right? Just walk away. Just walk away. Leave it all behind, right? Of course, 10% talent, 90% hard work, right? With everything, not just languages, with everything, right? Can you take the heat? Can you get your butt kicked every single day, right? Can you feel the frustration, right? The emotional, right, hardship of failure, of frustration, whatever it is, right? If you can take it, you will sooner or later you will reach your goals. Hi, Irina. Welcome to class. Welcome to class. Alrighty, so let's continue here, right? It's persistence. Language fluency is very rare. 95% of people who want to reach fluency never achieve it, right? Because they lack persistence, right? And it is very, very hard. It's one of the hardest things there is, right? So mastery can't be faked. You can't fake mastery. That's why it shine or shines so brightly. Right. So mastery, right, where it's self mastery, whether it's mental mastery, whether it's mastery in learning a foreign language, right, you can't fake it. In a world that is so fake and everything can be faked, we live in a world where with technology and with you can fake so many things. Pretty much you can fake so much in this world, and so the things that can't be faked, well, those are the things they become most valuable. Very good. So it shines. Right. Mastery shines so brightly because it can't be faked. It's so rare. Right? If you can show mastery in whatever it is, if you can show mastery in whatever you do, in your you know, how you conduct your life, right? What you achieve, that that is so valuable. That is a rare quality. And so the mind is the true battlefield or the true field battle. Right? So where is the war taking place? Right? So we talk about there's a battle. Well, right, there's a battle. It's like a fighting. Where does a fighting take place? Where does it take place? Hmm, it takes place in the mind. Right? The mind. Now, the spirit also, right, of course, it's a spiritual, it's a spiritual battle. It's a mental model. It's a mental battle, a spiritual battle, and it's all in the inner realm, right? So the mind is the battlefield. Those who endure win. Now, I talk about this all the time. We talked about brain rot, and I've alluded to this situation that we're in the world, right? Where there is almost an agenda, there's almost a force. Let's put it that way: a force at work to push, you know, to push us down, right? Whether it's you know, social media, right, and all this input that is all this outrage online, whether it's just the world, just the craziness of the world, right? If we're plugged in to all of that, if we're plugged into the news and we're scrolling all day and just feeding our minds with short form content and outrage and toxicity, well, what effect do you think that has on you? Do you really think that the fruits of these activities will be beneficial? Well, no, of course not. Right. So our minds are at war. Right. There's a lot of different levels of where this war is taking place. A lot of different levels, but the main battlefield is our minds. Right. And again, to win, you need to endure. You need to stay on your feet, right? You need to keep going, right? If you stop, you lose. That's all it is. If you losing is just stopping. If you keep going, you already won. So the number one thing is to not stop, right? Stopping and restarting costs more energy or gets more energy than steady progress. Right. So a very common thing is starting and stopping. Right? You start and you stop. You start and you stop. right? You get really excited about your whatever goal you have. So you start and then you stop. Now, that, if you know anything about physics, you understand that that takes a lot of energy. Does it cost more energy or does it get more energy? All right. Which verb fits? All right. So, as you can see, stopping and restarting costs more energy. Right? It's just basic physics. It's high school physics, right? We need momentum. What a car, think about it as a car. Now, getting the car to start moving requires the most amount of energy. Once the car is moving, that's why you know you have your shifts, right? So your gears. Right? You go to the second gear. There's less energy is required. The motor needs to work less hard to keep the car moving once it starts moving, right? And then once you pick up the speed, then you can shift up. Right? When you shift up, there's less energy is required to increase the speed. Now, your progress is like a car, right? Starting requires the highest amount of energy. Once you build your momentum, then the energy to keep going is less and less and less. And believe it or not, less energy is required to go from, let's say, 100 kilometers per hour to 110, than from 0 to 10. Right? 0 to 10, a lot more energy is required, in terms of with the car analogy, than going from 100 to 110. The same amount of kilometers, it's 10 kilometers, difference in speed, but the amount of energy. Now, we can use this analogy for our goals, right? Keep it going, right? Use the power of physics to propel you, right? Don't stop. Once you stop, it'll take a lot of energy. It will cost you a lot of energy to restart, right? So when you throw in the towel or when you drop in the towel, this is an expression that means to quit, right? When you throw in the towel or drop in the towel, that means when you quit, you lose more than words. You lose momentum, right? Like I said, the momentum is energy. It's energy that is working for you because you're already moving in the direction of your goals. So that everything that you did before, all the energy you spent earlier, is propelling you forward. Once you stop, you lose everything that you've built. Right? So you lose the momentum. And then it becomes much harder to pick up, to pick back up, right? It's a it's a slippery slope, right? Because it starts with just losing your streak on the Mondly app, right? Or skipping class, right? Or not preparing for class or not studying, right? So when you throw in the towel, that's an expression. You throw in the towel, you quit. Run when you're inspired, walk when you're tired, but keep moving. I love this one, right? So people say, well, you can't go 100% all the time. And that's absolutely true. I'm not telling you you need to, because running all the time or sprinting the whole time will lead to burnout. And that's not good either. Right. So I'm not telling you to go 100% all the time. Right. The speed can be variable. If you're inspired, run. Don't, if you're super inspired to learn Spanish, French, English, and you want to study 4 hours a day, I say go for it. Go for it. Get the Mondly app, premium, and then just use it, all night. Use it for 4 or 5 hours every day. Get a textbook and just go page after page after page after page. Knock yourself out if you're inspired, right? If you're tired, if you're burnt out, if you're unmotivated, if you're kind of yeah, if you've kind of if you're missing that spark, walk. Right? Just walk, but keep moving. Right. Right. Exactly. So you just keep walking. Right. Keep walking. Right. If you're inspired, run. When you're tired, walk. But keep moving. No matter what it is, keep moving. Something else that's very, very important right here, right, is that people miss the language train. Right. It's another analogy, right? The train, right? So you want to learn French, English or Spanish, whatever language you're learning. It's a train, right? You jump on the train, you get on the train, and it takes you to your destination. Now, why do people miss the language train? Because they stop showing on or showing up at the station. Right? This is the reason. Right? This is the reason. Right? Why do people miss the language learning train? Why do people, never achieve this dream? Right? It's not because they didn't have the talent, because they didn't have the linguistic mindset, because they didn't have the intellect, right? It's none of that. The only reason why people miss the language train is because they stop showing up at the station. Just show up at the station. Just show up. Right? Everyone who misses a train, and that there's a lot of people, right? I've met thousands, and I see the data. Right? The data in the app says, hundreds of millions of people, right, download the language learning app. Right? Hundreds of millions of people say, oh, this year I'm going to learn Spanish. This year I'm going to improve my English. What does the data show? Most people miss the train. And it's because one day, they didn't show up at the station. Fluency is valuable, right? Precisely because so few endure the long road. Right? It's a long road. It's a painful road, right? And the road can also be life. It can be success. It can be health, right? It can be, a business, right? It's a long, hard road, right? People think you know, it's easy, or they think it will be easy for them. Maybe it will be easy for me. It never is. It never is easy. So, right, mind over body, right? Mind over body. We have to fight our own inclinations because there's going to be a voice inside our head that tells us, oh no, you'll never achieve this. You'll never make your dreams come true. Right? This is not for you. Right? There's always that voice. Right? You're going to find excuses. Everyone finds excuses. Oh, the weather's nice. I should be outdoors. Why am I studying, learning? Why am I working on my business at home in my studio if I could be on the beach dancing? Right? Right? It's hard to put your mind over your body. That's true, Zex. It's very difficult, right? But it is something that we can train, right? It's your willpower. So one of the things that you can do, and maybe I'll create another lesson about this. So training. So you can, skip a meal. Skip a meal, right? Say, your body wants food. You have food in your fridge, but you choose to skip the meal, to go, to not have breakfast or not have lunch or not have dinner. Your mind is fighting your own biology. Your biology is saying, give me food now. Your mind says, no, no food for you, right? You're putting your mind over your body. You say no to yourself, right? Or, getting up from bed, after, let's say 6 hours. You say, okay, I'm going to sleep for 6 hours, not 1 minute more. You put your mind over your body. When your alarm sounds, you get out of bed. That same minute, as soon as you hear the alarm, you get up. Right? That's mind over body because your body's saying, no, I'm tired. 5 more minutes. Oh, let me hit the snooze button. Oh, today I can arrive late at the office. I don't have to wake up early. I can stay an extra 30 minutes. Why not? Say no. Mind over body. I will get out of bed. I will skip a meal. I will do something that is uncomfortable. Right. That's how you train the will. Exactly. Discipline. Right. They teach that in the army. Right. And it's it's a mental superpower. If you can do that, right? If you can fight your own biology, then you're closer to discovering the secret, right? Yeah, conquer your weaker self. That's a good one. I like that one. Right. So yeah, we have our strong self and we have our weak self. Right. And it's a constant battle. Right? We have the winner and the loser. And they're both living in our brains. Right? We have the winner, and he's like, yes, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to write. I'm going to study. I'm going to make money. I'm going to have a great day. And then in the same brain, there's the loser. And it's like, hey, nah, let's just go to McDonald's and watch Netflix. Why do you want to make money? Why do you want to get rich? No, it's better just to be lazy. Just sleep. Just take a nap. Right? Drink beer all day. Play video games, guys. Come on. That's what life is all about. Right? And then there's this constant fight inside the brain with the winner and the loser. Right? And then, sometimes the the world, whether it's media or if it's just, you know, they they facilitate the loser, right? It's easier, right? It's easier to be a loser, right? That's the path of least resistance, right? The winner needs to swim against the current. So imagine you have the winner. There's a river, and the river's flowing, and then the loser inside the head is like, wait, I'm just gonna swim. I'm just gonna take it easy. Do the, you know, just swim with the current. Go with the flow, right? But being a winner is swimming against the current, right? Because by definition, to win, right, is to be different from the norm, right? So if you're a winner, you're going to swim against the current. The whole world is working against you. Everything is working against you. To be successful at language learning, the whole world is working against you. To make money, become successful, the whole world is working against you, right? And so, but to be lazy, to be fat, to be, you know, just average. Well, that's easy. It's easy to be average. That's the definition of easy. That's the definition of average. It's easy, right? It takes no effort to be like everybody else. It takes no effort to be, normal, right? But it takes a lot of effort to be, you know, to be successful, right? So, just a few things to think about, right? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So Zach likes to speak. He likes people who speak how to do something, not while it is not possible to do that. Okay. So I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean. How to do something. Exactly. That's the key, right? How to do it. But remember, how to do. People also focus on the mechanics of it rather than the spirit of it. The spirit of success is to keep moving, right? Because a lot of people, there's that analysis paralysis, which is a different topic. We'll cover it one day, which is you analyze so much that you become paralyzed. Analysis paralysis, right? So they focus on the mechanics so much that they don't take action, right? Just keep moving in the right direction. That's it. That's it. Don't overanalyze. Don't strategize too much. Just keep moving, right? Exactly. When you swim against the current, it's not fast, right? If the current is strong, then it's very slow and it's very easy to just stop working hard, and then the current takes you away. So remember, the world is the world is not working for you, right? It's sad, but it's the reality. The world doesn't want you to be, extraordinary. The world wants you to be ordinary, right? That's the standard. That's the default mode. The default mode is ordinary by definition. Extraordinary, you have to be better than ordinary. And to be extraordinary, you are swimming against the current. You are fighting, right? Fighting the forces of the world that are trying to keep you ordinary. It's very difficult to become extraordinary, but it's possible, right? And the only thing you need to remember is to keep moving, keep walking, don't lose the momentum. And that will take you to your destination, right? Step by step. Exactly. Exactly, guys. Alrighty. So we are running out of time, guys. But it was a good conversation. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your hard work. Right. Keep it up. Right. If you get back up. If you took a break, if you've lost your momentum, build it back up. How can you do that? Well, very easy. Just join the WhatsApp community, join the speaking groups, right? The speaking club. Get yourself activated. Open up the app again, right? The Mondly app. Work on the app, right? That, get back up. Just get back up. Keep working. If you want to join, just either scan the QR code here or drop me a message and I will send you the link. All right. So good to see all of you. Right. Keep up the good work. And remember, right? Take control. Take control of your life. Your mind is wonderful, right? Your superpower is your mind. The battlefield is in your mind. Take control of your mind and use it. Use the power of your mind, right? And that, the battle itself, that is life. Life is the battle and life is the journey. All right. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care. And as always, guys, I'm always happy to see you. Keep learning.